Welcome back to class, med students. It's your friendly neighborhood doc here. I just wanted to talk to you about what I picked up this week at the comic shop. Make sure that you let me know in the comments below what you're reading. Let me know what interests you. And for now, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, guys. The first book I want to talk about today is When I Lay My Vengeance Upon Thee by Gus Marino and Jacob Rebelka from Boom Studios. This is issue 2. We have the continuation of Father Stygian and Father Barreto. And in this issue, they are trying to go over a exorcism with a young man named Alex. They're trying to figure out who is possessing him. And it seems like the possession comes from Father Varden, who was Father Stygian's predecessor. And Maru, the mother, actually says that she's seen Father Varden and he's spoken to her. But in this issue, you get this really, really gnarly artwork that shows almost a baby horse, but a demonic horse trying to be born. And you get to see all of this almost like dreamlike artwork, because you're not just dealing with the physical world, now you're dealing with the spiritual world. This book, to me, seems like an exercise in teaching people about exorcisms. Not necessarily how to, but it's more along the lines of the story is moved forward by the purpose of the exorcisms. It's not that the two exorcists are moving around independently of the possessions. A lot of times, and this, with it being, I believe, a mini instead of an ongoing, a lot of times you'll take that time to build that backstory. You'll create these characters and give them so much life. And here we've jumped straight into exorcisms. We've jumped straight into Catholicism. We've jumped straight into faith. And what makes a person a good person, what makes a person move past their past. A lot of times in groups that I've done with my psych patients, I've talked about moving past your past and not letting it weigh upon you. And that's what Father Stygian tells Father Barreto in this book. He says, don't lean on your past as a crutch. Learn to let it go. And Father Barreto asked him why, and he said, who could use it against you? And he said, the demons and those who seek to possess. So, really interesting book with a really interesting premise that's got a long title on it, but really great stuff, and I can't wait for issue 3. All right, speaking of issue 3, we have Juvenile, written and illustrated by Jesus Orellana. We have the continuation of the story here with Max and Sarah, and that they're learning that they can talk to one another. They're learning that their powers are real, and that there's so much more to this story. And if you don't remember what the story is, kids were being operated on because something had happened to them, and at 16 they would die. So they're highly medicated. They're kept in these particular areas. They're given the meds to try to keep them healthy, but instead these two have kind of figured out that's not what is going on. Instead, what's going on is they're being held down. They're getting superpowers, and I don't necessarily mean X-Men like superpowers, but they can read minds. They do have a small level of telekinesis. So they're learning from each other, and they're learning together that something is not right with this world. And some of them get experimented on in order to keep them sterile or keep their powers from possessing. and expanding. So this is really a story with amazing artwork that's very detailed, and it shows these emotions, and it shows how people feel, whether they're scared, whether they're lonely, whether they're seeking to control keep their control over these students. And in all of that, you're learning through this story that it's important that kids and teenagers are allowed to roam freely to an extent. They need to not be held back by certain governances. That's not to say that they should go do whatever the hell they want to do. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that they should be allowed to grow in certain ways and taught how to grow in those certain ways to expand their power over themselves. Not power over you, not power over me, not power over the government just yet because they're not old enough to be in that position, but instead they should learn and be able to be taught what makes them a better person. But going about it the way that these folks are doing here, keeping them in cells practically, keeping them held down, not allowing them to grow and flourish at a natural rate or grow and flourish with natural learning, it's inhumane. And I don't know if it's an allegory for people being held in prison improperly or without reason or something like that. But it's the story of, instead of taking pills to grow, don't take pills. Don't allow somebody to force feed you medicine to tell you that you need to take it to get better. It's a little bit of an interesting antithesis to what I do as a day-to-day job. My job as a mental health technician is to help the patients understand why they're taking their medicines and what those benefits of those medicines are. This is explaining to people that those medicines might have a place and a time, but it doesn't work for everybody. So, an interesting story to be sure, and I can't wait to see how it continues next issue. All right, this one I'm going to talk about on initial assessment, but this is Darth Vader, the Star Wars Legacy of Vader, and it's the Reign of Kylo Ren. Written by Charles Soule with art by Luke Ross. This one was a really, really fun read, so I can't wait to talk to you guys more about it in the next video. All right, next up we have The Walking Dead Deluxe issue 106. We get a continuation of Rick trying to find Carl, and in that trying to figure out how to work with Negan, because Negan just loves to show his power and his authority over Rick and company. This artwork doesn't really even need to be shown off because it's not the same as the cover. This is Dave Finch artwork on the cover. But Charlie Adlard, this was his 100th issue illustrating The Walking Dead. So this builds on the original series, but it gives you that color by Dave McCaig, and you get to see subtleties that you might have missed in characters' faces with the black and white. So if you hadn't read this book before, I would say start with the trades because they have them in trade paperback just like the original series, and definitely get caught up on The Walking Dead Deluxe. All right, and the last book that I'm really going to talk about is The Sacrificers, issue 14. This book just absolutely rocks. It's written by Rick Remender with art by Max Fumara and colors again by Dave McCaig. This is called No Light Beyond, part 3 of 4. And here you have Beatrice, who is Pigeon's little sister, And it looks like a circus is coming to town, which it's a very odd dichotomy with last week the Seasons being released. And it had a similar premise where you see the circus come to town, but they destroy these towns. In this instance, the circus is coming to town to try to kidnap / hold these sacrificial children in their thrall until it's time for them to be sacrificed to the gods. And you get to see, I believe it's Saluna. Yep, Saluna here. And she was friends with Beatrice, but she saw something evil in Saluna. She saw a blackness in Saluna. And so Saluna says, I've got to stay away from you. You take these rocks and you hit me if you see me falling asleep, because I don't want to destroy anybody else. And unfortunately, she finally does go to bed and fall asleep. And Beatrice goes to try to aid her while she is destroying these circus performers. She's unconsciously, something inside of her is actually destroying these circus performers. But she finally gets woken up, and Saluna has to gain the trust of Beatrice and her fellow sacrificees by saying, something's not right here. And I'm trying to protect you. Please come with me and I will save you. Saluna has had a total change of heart because she's seen the good that comes from the sacrifices, because it gives the gods strength. And they can continue on their own path as they have for many, many years. But by the same token, it destroys these children and these families, and it rips countless families apart. They lose family members that they'll never see again. And she knows that that's not right. She knows that that's not how things are or should be. So you've taken Pigeon from a very meek and mild character at the very beginning of the series and given him godlike powers that he stole from Saluna. And you've given Saluna something far more valuable. You've given her humanity. You've given her empathy. You've given her an understanding of who these children are and why they are just precious beyond measure and why they should be saved. So this book is most definitely my pick of the week. If you guys aren't reading Sacrificers, pick it up however you can find it. Digital, physical copies. Just get in on this book. This is one of the best books that you could read out there. And the last book that I wanted to show off, but I'm not going to talk about it, is The Last Ronin 2, Re-Evolution, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is issue 4. And the reason I'm not going to talk about it is I haven't read issue 3 yet. It's coming in the mail. And once I read issue 3, I'll go over issue 3 and issue 4. I'm hoping that this series doesn't get killed in the middle of it. Or, well, it should be getting close to the end. But I'm really, really hoping that the series gets to finish. And I'm hoping that IDW doesn't go belly up in the process of trying to finish it. Because, to be honest, I'm kind of saddened by the way things that the Neil Gaiman situation has turned out. I understand and respect the position of all of those involved and those that have been hurt. It hurts me to read those stories. It hurts me to see that somebody who I held in such high regard turn out to be a fallible human being just like the rest of us. But I won't get into that. I just want to say that I hope that they do get to finish Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin 2, Re-Evolution, simply because we've lost Miracle Man the Dark Age. And that's a story that I was hoping that after all these years would see the light of day. And now Marvel has said that they are not doing any more projects with Neil Gaiman currently. And it looks like even Mark Buckingham, who was going to be the principal, both writer and artist on that particular miniseries, with input from Neil Gaiman, has left the title. and just kind of left it in a state of suspended animation. So maybe one day Mark will change his mind. Maybe one day things will cool off. I'm not saying that Gaiman should be the one to finish it, but I would love to see the title finished, just like this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles title. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this haul video, and let me know what you're reading. Have a great Wednesday, and we'll catch you later.